Do you believe in ghosts? That night, my follow account surged by hundreds of thousands. In the darkness, I curved my lips into a slight smile, manipulating people. It's hard to say if it's difficult or easy. Desire is the very string that pulls them, step by step, into a fate they believe is their own. The next day, the class chat group, long thought abandoned, suddenly buzzed back to life. Messages from Kira flooded in. What do you mean by that? Are you framing me? Are you trying to set me up? I didn't push Vivian down the stairs. She sent dozens of voice messages, but I didn't open it. My other classmates remained as silent as ever, vanishing without a trace. I paused, then simply replied, I only tell stories. Vera grew even angrier. Oh my God, the police are looking for me. If you're crazy, don't drag me into it. Didn't I apologize to you for what happened that year? Don't force me to tell the police everything I know. She was as foolish as ever. By saying that, wasn't she implicitly admitting to hiding something from the police? Predictably, Kira quickly recalled her messages. It seemed I had guessed correctly. The person who had left without a word was the young police officer. I vaguely recalled seeing his name tagged the other day. Jan. Jan. So perhaps they had already begun investigating the university incident. That afternoon, Detective Jan called, asking me to come to the station again. This time, he wasn't alone. A female officer about my age was also present. It seemed the university matter had been clarified quite quickly. Detective Gray began. According to our investigation, your grandmother and mother, a classmate, and even your academic advisor all died under circumstances where you had a motive. He continued. Your grandmother and mother were dissatisfied with your father, often not allowing him to eat his fill. So, at a party, he overate, leading to acute pancreatitis. They then prevented him from being hospitalized, directly causing his death. Because of this, you resented them. I raised an eyebrow. There's no reason my grandmother and mother would harm my father, is there? Your father had some assets. A few months before the incident, your mother even bought insurance for him. But if my father died, I would also inherit a portion of his wealth. If they were only after money, shouldn't they have killed me too? Detective Gray spoke up again. In fact, they did intend to kill you. On your grandmother's birthday, they made you kneel and refused to give you food. Your mother even put poison in the porridge and forced you to drink it. But for some unknown reason, that bowl of porridge ended up in your grandmother's stomach, turning her birthday into her Memorial Day. He continued. Vivian and her friends bullied you and Leo, humiliating you in every way. Therefore, you wanted to kill her. But you didn't have the opportunity. According to our investigation, you couldn't have physically harmed her, as she had a serious heart condition. Logically, your hands wouldn't have been strong enough. I guessed my expression wasn't easy to read at that moment, as the female officer looked distinctly relieved. She went on. Your advisor, Alex Hu, had a history of harassing female students. He once called you to his office late at night, presumably with ill intentions. Thus, you also had a motive. I remained silent for a moment, then replied, we reported it to the school back then, but nothing ever came of it. In the end, It's still the police who get things done, isn't it? The female officer blinked. So you admit it then? Detective Gray's voice softened slightly. We understand you've suffered many injustices, but that's not a reason to break the law. I looked them straight in the eye until they were the first to avert their gaze. I calmly responded, I haven't broken the law, not from beginning to end. The female officer pointed to the words on the wall. Confess and be leniently treated. Deny and face severe punishment. You understand, don't you? I shook my head. Evildoers are judged by heaven. Their deaths truly have nothing to do with me. Detective Gray and the female officer exchanged glances. Then his phone rang. He left the room to answer, and the female officer looked at me full of surprise. I'm really curious. How did you do it? We haven't found any evidence yet. I looked at her, unsure if she was inexperienced or trying to probe me. So I smiled slightly and said, You don't want people to know. Don't do it in the first place. She flipped through the documents. It's really not you. According to the information we have, Kira only stated that Leo pushed Vivian. I froze. This outcome didn't surprise me, but her words left me uncertain. Were they investigating Leo, or had they ruled him out as a suspect? Detective Gray returned, his eyes clearly showing anger. What tricks did you pull yesterday? He held out his phone, the screen showing a bruised man lying on the ground. I glanced at it. That's the guy who was following me the other day. Detective Gray was so furious he shook his head. Even if someone wrongs you, taking the law into your own hands is a crime. Don't you understand? I blinked. What about enticing minors to commit crimes? Does that count? Detective Gray was speechless. I recounted how this began last week. That day, before going upstairs, I noticed someone watching me from a hidden corner downstairs. I didn't turn around, simply pretended to check my reflection in my phone and snapped a picture of his face. He wasn't a police officer, as the two plainclothes officers following me were sitting in a white Skoda parked on the street. That evening, I mentioned this during my live stream, as if casually sharing a detail. Before long, someone offered to help me identify the stalker. I recognized his familiar ID. It was Fatty Fan, the bulky man who once led a group to my doorstep with funeral wreaths. I refused a few times, but eventually received his assurance. It was all Fan's doing, completely unrelated to the idol. Detective Gray knew he couldn't touch me, which was why he was so enraged. I pulled a USB drive from my pocket. Detective Gray, don't be angry. This contains evidence. Both Detective Gray and the female officer asked in unison. Evidence of what? I answered concisely. It's evidence that my advisor, Alex Hu, harassed female students. I hope that one day you two can make this evidence public for everyone to know. You? They looked at me, astonished. You've planned all of this beforehand. I shook my head slightly, my eyes wide and innocent as I looked at them. How could I? Officers, I'm simply waiting for justice to arrive. As he escorted me to the door, Detective Gray cautioned me with a troubled voice. You're young, and the influence of such a large fan base. I'm afraid you won't be able to control it. Don't let yourself get entangled in things you shouldn't. I smiled, sincerely thanking him, but I also had a message for him. Meeting Detective Gray's vigilant gaze, I slowly articulated each word. Human malice is the easiest thing to exploit. But I was meticulously prepared. I wore the only dress I owned, applied light makeup, put in contact lenses, and even visited a hair salon to perfect my hairstyle. On screen, the young woman with a delicate face and vulnerable eyes was truly captivating. Compared to the sharp features of the goddess, I appeared more refined, at least by most societal standards. As soon as the live stream began, I was showered with countless compliments. The screen was flooded with virtual rockets, almost completely obscuring my face. "Oh my gosh, I never knew Sister Durian was so beautiful." Mom asked why I'm drooling while watching a spiritual live stream. She could clearly make a living with her looks, but she chooses fortune-telling. I chuckled softly, and my fans became even more boisterous. Calm down, everyone. Today I'm going to tell you a story about a university advisor. Gradually, the comments subsided, and I began to speak. He was born in a small town, an only child, in a family that had him late in life. So he was spoiled rotten, getting everything he desired. But he wasn't intelligent. His appearance was ordinary, his height unremarkable, and his family wasn't wealthy. Reality was so different from his delusions that his psyche became increasingly warped. After graduating from university, his parents used all their connections to keep him at the school as a student advisor. For students newly entering university, an advisor still held a certain authority. He seized this advantage, beginning to use his power to coerce female students, knowing that girls his age would never give him a second glance. He boasted about his connections, promised bright futures, and actually kept his word a few times, allowing his wicked deeds to continue undetected until a new girl enrolled. Looking at her file, he discovered her parents were both deceased, and she was alone, studying in the city. It was as if fate had helped him. He thought this time he would dominate her for 4 years, but he didn't expect this girl to be both clever and strong. Before he could achieve anything, she reported him to the department. Luckily for him, the department head was his former teacher. Upon hearing the story, he immediately informed the advisor that an orphan dared to ruin his reputation. The advisor spent a large sum of money to suppress the matter and began devising a plan for revenge. That girl was a descendant of the Liu family, a clan known for setting up spiritual formations to ward off evil. She arranged a formation. That day, the wind was fierce. As he walked past the billboard, a gust of wind toppled the entire board onto his head, crushing it flat. Even the paramedics shook their heads. It was too late to take him to the hospital. From then on, he no longer had the chance to harm anyone else. That girl also graduated smoothly. I smiled from the bottom of my heart. And after a long silence, the comment section exploded. Did I just hear that right? Does she mean she set up a formation to kill someone herself? Is there a law in this world that jails you for using mysticism to commit murder? That being said, that scumbag deserved to die. Someone began to steer public opinion. And soon, all comments turned to condemning the advisor. I didn't continue the topic. I simply said gently, today is my final live stream. I will randomly select 3 fans to connect with. I'll answer anything you wish to ask. After viewers expressed surprise mixed with regret, the number of connection requests soared to tens of thousands. I chose the first person, and coincidentally, it was the hefty fan from the other day. Fatty Fan. He was incredibly agitated. Dorian, the scumbag you just talked about, that's him. He then raised his phone to the camera, revealing a black and white obituary photo of the advisor, complete with his full name. I hadn't expected him to find it so quickly. It was indeed a pleasant surprise. I only told the story, everyone. You don't need to believe it too much, I said, feigning shyness. Fatty Fan's face flushed red, his hands clenched. People like that are truly scum. Dorian, I genuinely feel for you. The guy I taught a lesson to a few days ago is that scumbag's younger brother. He was even following you, trying to harm you. Fatty Fan's performance far exceeded my expectations, making me inwardly nod with satisfaction, though outwardly I find discomfort. The netizens, however, couldn't hold back. Dorian, don't worry. Don't worry. I work in traditional media, and I'll make sure he's utterly ruined, unable to rest even in death. I work in online media. Just wait and see how I deal with his family. I guarantee they won't dare come near you again. See? Given the right time and place, how fervent human nature can become. I bowed my head, softly thanking everyone for their concern. But the matter is concluded. There's no need to dig it up again. I spoke with conviction. I trust that the law will protect me. I chose the second person, a young girl. She wore a mask and a hat that covered her forehead, revealing only her moist eyes. Is there anything I can help you with? Sister Dorian, can you teach me that formation? The comments exploded. Such a well-behaved girl wants to learn how to set up a formation to kill someone. This live stream has really gone off the rails. Shut up. What do you know, interfering like that? The girl continued. I also went through something exactly like what you described in your story. That single sentence ignited everyone's fury. Tell us. Let Sister Dorian get justice for you. There truly are all kinds of awful people in this day and age. Disgusting. They deserve to be castrated. I felt a pang in my heart and asked, do you have any proof? The girl, choked with emotion, pulled out her phone. This is the chat log between me and him. The images showed the other party's utterly unacceptable, vulgar jokes and comments. Not only that, he also called me to his private office. Her voice grew softer, while the comment section erupted in angry curses. I calmly replied, I cannot teach you the formation, but you can expose him right here. I guarantee millions of people will witness it, and the police will definitely help you get justice. The girl's eyes welled up with tears. Really, sister? I looked at the silent, anonymous account watching the stream, then nodded confidently. I promise. The third person was a boy wearing a baseball cap, sitting in the shadows, so only his chin was visible, bruised, as if he'd just been beat. Dorian, I've been following your live stream for a long time. I truly admire you. I quietly waited for him to continue. His voice choked. but I feel like I'm not as brave as you. I also went through something terrible, but I didn't dare to fight back or even speak up. Viewers unanimously encouraged him. Go on. There are millions of people supporting you. You can just talk about it without naming names. It's already so brave just to connect. The girl from earlier also spoke up. Only when we no longer wish to live in darkness can the light truly shine. And so, the boy began to recount, disjointedly, his bullying experience. Under the immense power of the online community, his school and the identity of his bullies were quickly tracked down. It was said that someone had even sent death threats to the bully. At first, the boy was frightened, but then, deeply moved, his eyes turned red. Thank you, everyone. I truly don't know how to repay you. It's just a small matter. Just study hard, and that's enough. Next time anyone dares to bully you, remember to tell us. We do this voluntarily. It's not your fault. Everyone was moved by their own kindness. The live stream had become a place where fans sought justice. Fatty Fan sent me a private message. Dorian, please, don't turn off the live stream. Let this place become a platform to expose injustice. I pondered. Did they want to turn this into a tribunal? There would come a time when those who erected such a tribunal would also be dragged onto the stand. The next morning, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was the female officer from before. She introduced herself as Officer Van Dart. My team leader, Detective Gray, might be coming to your university for an investigation in the next few days. Her voice was strangely gentle. We're not giving up. If you confess now, you might get a reduced sentence. I wasn't silent because I was still being investigated, but because this officer seemed to be helping me. Outwardly, it was a warning, but in reality, it was a reminder for me to quickly erase traces at the university. Before I could react, she added, if you change your mind, just call me. Then hung up. Recalling her previous question, which had seemed like a probe, I realized she was actually relaying information. Was she on my side? I guess the police were likely using a good cop, bad cop tactic. But after a few days, no one contacted me. Browsing online, I coincidentally discovered that the stories of the boy and the girl from the live stream had soared to the top of the hot searches. Under public pressure, witnesses came forward. The police launched investigations into both the girl's advisor and the boy's bullying incident. The two perpetrators were publicly exposed, at the very least utterly disgraced. My live stream had broken through, becoming incredibly popular. Fatty Fan led the fan base, continuing to manage the live stream room in my absence. After that, every time someone came forward to expose darkness, it attracted significant attention. The live stream room became even hotter than when I hosted it. I messaged Fatty Fan. Don't go too far. We only provide a platform. Don't interfere. You deeply. He nodded frantically. Given his hot-headed and emotional. As expected, the backlash came swiftly. A girl accused her middle school teacher of bullying. The teacher's identity was unearthed, and he faced intense condemnation. But then, public opinion reversed. Classmates and colleagues proved the girl had fabricated the story because she was too strictly managed. The incident significantly affected the teacher, leaving him distraught and unable to defend himself. It was rumored that the goddess's former #1 fan was pulling the strings from behind. The live stream was shut down, and Fatty Fan was also called in for a lesson. This was an outcome I had foreseen. I thought everything was over, but then Detective Gray reappeared and took me away. I was detained for several months. For the first time, I sat in the defendant's chair, while Officer Fan sat in the prosecutor's. Detective Gray and Detective Yan were in the front row. Behind them, a throng of spectators and countless reporters. Fatty Fan and his group sat in a corner, their eyes filled with worry for me. I glanced at Kira, Alex Hu's younger brother, and Vivian's father, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. All were present. Beside them sat a bald, wealthy-looking man with cold, menacing eyes. My heart sank. But what worried me wasn't them. It was little Wu, Leo, and the friends I had helped. All had vanished. Under the judge's direction, Officer Fan stood up, her eyes sweeping the room before she began. Your Honors, as the prosecutor, I present the indictment against the defendant, Lili, for her involvement in the deaths of Grandmother Wang, Mother Liu, Vivian, Alex Hu, and Shen Tianquan. Just at the opening, the courtroom erupted in murmurs. Perhaps no one had expected my involvement to be so severe. Then Officer Fan, in a calm voice, meticulously recounted what the victims had done to me, thereby clarifying my motives for the crimes and my methods of killing, primarily enticement, manipulation, and creating accident-like scenes. I raised an eyebrow slightly. Old Detective Gray hadn't been idle. He'd managed to unearth all these details. But did he have real evidence? Murmurs filled the courtroom. A few people looked at me with sympathetic eyes, perhaps because the victims' past actions made them understand my motives. That was what they called common morality, social ethical standards. But before the law, it might not hold up. When Officer Fan concluded her indictment, my defense lawyer stood up. He stated that I had always been a model citizen, listing my academic achievements, awards, and good educational background, asserting that I was not involved in those cases. For the evidence review, the prosecution stated that due to the length of time since the incidents, physical evidence was difficult to collect, so they could only rely on witnesses. The first witness was the goddess's aunt, visibly aged, her hands cuffed. It seemed she had signed a plea bargain to testify. She pointed directly at me, saying, "She sounds exactly like the person who ordered my niece's murder over the phone." I chuckled inwardly. I had clearly used a voice changer device. The second witness was the truck driver who caused the accident that killed my mother all those years ago. He testified that a child had told him there was new medicine in the village, which was why he drove in. And that child looked very much like me. But I knew perfectly well I hadn't told him to come to the village that year. I had merely subtly kept track of his schedule. Why would I leave? Such a foolish oversight. The third witness shocked me. Leo Fei, Banxiat, Gariye, Fei. His face was strangely pale, and he spoke slowly. That year, she told me that if I just pushed Vivian down the stairs, no one would ever find out. I narrowed my eyes. I had never said such a thing. Could Detective Gray be using such despicable tactics, not even shying away from fabricating testimony to incriminate me? The courtroom grew noisier. Some people began cursing the victims, like Kira and Alex Hu. But the bald man remained calm, casually saying, "There's one more important witness. You'll see." Officer Fan glanced towards the spectator seats, not asking the judge to maintain order, but merely smiling, speaking each word slowly. We now call the fourth and final witness. What I feared most had finally arrived. A figure silently stepped forward from behind. It was little Wu. I watched him intently, but he didn't look back at me. Once he was in place, Officer Fan signaled him to begin. Little Wu started. "The defendant is my adoptive sister. Before she went to university, we always played together. I'm very close to her, so I couldn't let her go down the wrong path." The entire courtroom fell silent. Little Wu continued, "I suspect my sister used some method to cause the deaths of Grandmother Wang and Mother Liu." Officer Fan asked, "Why do you think so?" He replied, "Their deaths were too coincidental. Grandmother Wang died the very night she refused to give my sister food. Mother Liu died after she scolded and beat my sister." Officer Fan nodded. "Can you clarify the relationship between the defendant and the two victims?" Little Wu replied, "They treated my sister terribly, even pushed her father to the point of suicide." Officer Fan pressed on, "So on the day those two died, did you notice anything?" The courtroom became utterly silent. I quietly watched Little Wu, my heart filled with a tangled sadness. Perhaps the only thing I didn't account for was human nature. People change, don't they? Little Wu lifted his head, recalled for a moment, then shook his head. No. The entire hall erupted. Officer Fan was somewhat flustered and asked again, "Is this your complete testimony? Nothing left out?" Little Wu shook his head. Officer Fan pressed on. "You didn't see the defendant place the bowl of poisoned porridge meant for Mother Liu in front of Grandmother Wang, did you?" The judge rapped his gavel, reminding the prosecutor, "Please do not use leading questions." Little Wu replied, "I didn't see anything related to the porridge." Officer Fan pursed her lips, then asked again, "So on the day Mother Liu died, did you see the defendant pour water at the village bend?" Little Wu shook his head again, his face still calm. The courtroom began to grow noisy. "Is this all the evidence? Are the police kidding us? Isn't this just based on slander? How can you convict without direct evidence?" Alex Hu's younger brother retorted, "Don't you see how tragically my brother died? She's the killer. She should be executed immediately." Someone sneered at him. "You don't know what your brother did. Now you're running your mouth here." In these times of strict enforcement, someone like your brother would have been shot long ago. This left him speechless, and he could only sit down, glaring at me with cold fury. Vivian's father sprang to his feet. "She killed my daughter, only 16. She hadn't even had a chance to live her life as a girl." Someone in the room spat. "Your daughter was also 16, in the prime of her life. And she dared to torment others. I hate school bullying the most. If I hadn't been bullied, I wouldn't have failed university." A tattooed man jumped up, forcing Vivian's father to sit back down, head bowed. Kira started to speak, But seeing the situation, she remained silent. My defense lawyer adjusted his tie and calmly stood up. It seems the prosecutor's evidence is merely speculation and fabrication. I believe my client is fully justified in countersuing the prosecutor for defamation. Laughter erupted in the courtroom. The judge rapped his gavel, restoring order. Officer Fan bowed her head and sat down. After a brief recess, the judge and clerk returned. He sat down, gently tapped his gavel, and declared, "I declare the defendant, Lily Liu, not guilty of murder in all 5 cases. And she is to be released immediately from this court." The room erupted. Fatty Fan and my team of fans cheered. Kira threw something down and stormed off. Alex, whose younger brother, glared at me, and the bald man yelled, "Lily Liu, just you wait." Fatty Fan immediately sneered. "Oh, aren't you the goddess's #1 fan? How dare you cause a scene here?" The judge just clearly announced the verdict. "Lily Liu is innocent. Innocent, do you hear?" The bald man glared at me once more, then angrily made a call and left. As the crowd gradually dispersed, I smiled faintly and walked towards Fatty Fan. "You all helped me so much." Fatty Fan looked bewildered. "What?" "I searched everywhere and couldn't help you at all." "Don't mock me." A long-haired girl interjected, "All right, stop talking about useless things. Congratulations, great goddess, on starting a new life." My fans cheered joyfully. I know why. A judicial police officer had to step in to remind them to keep order. I intended to wait for little Wu and Leo to come out, so I told my fans to go ahead, but they said the witnesses had left a long time ago. I reluctantly followed my fans back. As I stepped out the door, for some reason, I turned back and saw Detective Gray, Detective Yan, and Officer Fan standing together. Strangely, all 3 smiled genuinely at me. Extra story. Detective Gray's perspective. In the first time I saw Lily Liu, I knew she was hiding something. I've been a police officer for over 20 years. Everyone says I have a nose like a dog. Once I sniff out a criminal, it's hard for them to escape. But the scent on her wasn't that of a criminal. It was the scent of danger. Yes, she made me vigilant and a little afraid. It had been a long time since I felt that way. I first noticed her when investigating the suspicious death of a popular streamer. It took our technicians 2 weeks to trace the suspect's account, which used virtual IPs that changed minute by minute. Even the account that forced Lily Liu to nearly used a similar proxy. Only a very skilled hacker could do that. Coincidentally, Lily Liu is an excellent network engineer. Even more coincidentally, the phone that contacted the suspect only became active after Lily Liu pointed out the streamer's mistakes. And another coincidence, the goddess's aunt, when chatting with that account, inadvertently revealed her entire family situation, which almost perfectly matched what Lily Liu had told in her live stream. Too many coincidences are often the truth, but we had no direct evidence. When we went back to her old hometown to investigate, asking about how her grandmother and mother treated Lily Liu, her second aunt's eyes flickered unusually. It was then that a very important person emerged, her adoptive brother, Little Wu. When first approached, Little Wu showed clear defiance, absolutely refusing to say a word. It wasn't until Detective Yan casually mentioned growing up in a violent family without affection for his parents that little Wu's eyes gradually softened. He said, "There are some people born who don't deserve to be parents." And Lily Liu's mother was one such person. Her grandmother disdained Lily Liu's father because he was poor, incompetent, and didn't know how to grovel. Over time, her mother began to think the same way, becoming increasingly cruel to her husband and, by extension, to her child. Her mother often said Lily Liu was the spitting image of her father. Lily Liu's father worked tirelessly day and night as a truck driver, sometimes driving all night, only to return home to no hot meal. He often didn't even get enough food. But while he was alive, he loved his daughter unconditionally, completely unlike her mother. Her mother and grandmother only thought about profiting from their child, planning to marry her off for a good return when she grew up, never considering raising her properly. After her father's death, everything grew worse. One time, Lily Liu stole clothes because her mother instigated it, and what she stole was adult women's clothing. When caught, her mother beat her and made her kneel to apologize, seemingly to absolve herself. Detective Yan and I could only sigh. For a child growing up in such circumstances, I've seen many like this. How could a beautiful flower bloom in such barren soil? We continued to ask more questions. Every detail matched what we'd seen in a photo at Lily Liu's house. In that photo, it was just her and her father. Detective Yan asked if we needed to focus our investigation on little Wu. I said no. Based on what I gathered, little Wu was at most an outsider to someone who could commit murder and retreat with absolute impunity. He wouldn't easily reveal secrets to others. I was sure that in this world, besides Lily Liu, only we could uncover the truth. The next question was, how did Lily Liu strike back? Perhaps she swapped the poisoned porridge at the last moment, or used a borrowed knife to kill strategy, or a distraction technique. But the incident happened too long ago. Perhaps nothing could be investigated. It was a dead end. What about the driver who hit her mother that year? It took us considerable effort to track him down. It turned out he was a local parcel delivery driver, often transporting large goods to nearby villages, very familiar with those roads. He recounted that it was late autumn, and the road around the bend was very slippery. Despite continuously stepping on the brake, it had no effect. The car skidded sideways, flipping 3 meters off the road. Just then, Lily Liu's mother was standing by the road, chatting, and disaster struck from the sky. That accident ended his driving career, even leaving him almost penniless. We re-examined the police report from that year. The records showed no strange substances on the road, only a little water. Detective Yan and I looked at each other. No traces, no evidence. Even I, who had investigated dozens of major cases, had to admire her, saying, "Clean work, borrowing a knife to kill, leaving nothing to trace." Villager said Lily Liu loved to read, and her academic performance was excellent. Even in difficult subjects like literature, she consistently scored 100%, but more. In her school records, I found an essay she had written, which received a perfect score. The topic was spring, but the entire essay was filled with resentment, questioning, and doubt. She wrote, "Spring is the season most prone to depression. because it is so beautiful that it makes people feel unworthy of that beauty. Unworthy. I read the essay again. Our next stop was her high school. We met with Leo Fei, and the truth almost revealed itself. Although Leo didn't say anything explicitly, in my eyes, everything. Lily Liu and Leo Fei had both been victims of bullying. On the surface, Lily Liu only analyzed the situation for Leo. But in reality, she had subtly planted an idea in Leo's mind, silently and unbeknownst to anyone, causing him to push Vivian down the stair. No one saw, no one knew, no one could assign responsibility. Because of this, Leo believed he could do it, and ultimately, the incident truly happened. We continued talking to several other classmates. When Lily Liu was mentioned, everyone took a step back, not just because they had once ignored the bullying, but because they feared her. A person who always calmly observed everything as if an outsider to the world. I suddenly remembered her words. Human malice is the easiest thing to exploit. Leaving the school, I pulled out a cigarette. Detective Yan looked at me in surprise. Detective Gray, didn't you quit smoking? My hand trembled. She was an angel who had been ruined, and also a demon who brought death. She knew how to exploit legal loopholes, and how to manipulate the psychology of others without leaving a single trace. Is there really no loophole? Detective Yan asked. Do we need to arrest Leo Fei? Clearly, he also noticed the tension and gaps in Leo's testimony. I said no. All cases like this involve cumbersome procedures, and right now, it's just speculation. The chain of evidence isn't complete. But more importantly, even if Leo confessed everything, she would be the only one to go to prison. That year, they were all over 18, and criminal law only has provisions for penalizing those who incite minors to commit crimes. I took a few drags, finishing the cigarette, stomped out the butt under my foot, and immediately headed to Lily Liu's university. She was an excellent student, even though her parents were both deceased and she had no one to raise her. Thanks to her resilience and intelligence, she was admitted to a provincial university. She was the first person from her village to pass the university entrance exam in many years. Many remembered Alex Hugh, not least because his death was both tragic and bizarre. But equally many remembered Lily Liu because she had a very unique aura. When they learned we were investigating Alex Hu's case, many were surprised because his death was clearly an accident. Anyone with eyes could see that. We re-examined the location of the billboard, but since it had caused casualties, both the board and its steel frame had been dismantled. From the upper floor, one could clearly see everyone below, as the building was only 4 stories high. One could even make out facial features. Detective Yan, knowing what I was thinking, asked the tour guide teacher, "Can anyone come up here?" The teacher looked bewildered, replying, "Yes, it's not very high. Ordinary students wouldn't choose this spot for suicide." We fell silent. I asked, "Do you have many student suicides at your school?" She replied, "Just look around at any school. Every year, there are a few students who die for various reasons. Failing exams, being bullied, thesis not passing, it's quite common." I nodded a few times in agreement, then turned and left the rooftop. That's when I discovered a saw hidden in a corner. I picked it up, turning it over and examining it. It was a small saw, suitable for a woman to use. But I remembered the investigation report stated no traces of the billboard being cut were found. Furthermore, after so many years, who would leave a murder weapon at the scene? So, this was clearly a diversion tactic. How interesting. It meant Lily Liu had known we would come here. Or rather, she had guided us to this very spot. After that, I contacted the female students who had been harassed by Alex Hu, as recorded in Lily Liu's files. Most of them said they weren't here or couldn't meet. Finally, only one girl agreed. She wore a baseball cap and a mask, her voice soft like a whisper. I saw the anguish clearly reflected in Officer Fan's eyes. The girl said Alex Hu had threatened her, saying if she dared to tell anyone else, she would lose all her honor. She also said she didn't understand how Lily Liu knew she had been victimized. But Lily had always secretly helped and protected her. She was her only emotional support during that time. I left Officer Fan to comfort the girl in the coffee shop while I went outside. I felt completely powerless. The law should protect victims, not perpetrators. As a police officer, do I have the right to mend the loopholes left by the law?